Well, welcome to the Post Sunday app. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to try to answer some questions here based on the sermon. See, the gospel in Joshua.
Yeah.
I was there,
Yeah.
I promise.
I saw you.
And you went into Numbers 13
I can see everyone
14.
really well now that I'm closer.
That is a nice setup
So,
we have now.
yeah.
So that's great. That's great. There's some questions here. Let me start with a question that was kind of bigger picture. Someone asked a question about covenants. If Old Testament saints were saved, why the new covenant?
Yeah.
Answer that for us.
Yeah, I would direct people to the book of Hebrews, to Jeremiah 31. As God's revelation progresses, what we see is that the covenant and our ability to appreciate and understand God's salvation improves. So the new covenant is superior to the old covenant. It's not that the old covenant was evil or is bad, but the new covenant is better. It's better because God's law is written in our heart. There's this relationship with God that's deeper, that's richer. And right now we're experiencing, I believe, the blessings of the new covenant. But even now as we're experiencing the blessings of the new covenant, our ability to enjoy the new covenant is only going to increase as it's inaugurated. I believe it's going to be fully inaugurated, fully realized in the future. So the idea is that it's not that God is dealing with his people in a different way fundamentally, but in a better way. Just our ability to understand and appreciate God and have a relationship with him just increases.
Okay, so a fuller understanding of who he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a more intimate relationship.
Yeah.
So the new covenant is superior to the old covenant. That doesn't mean that the old covenant and God's relation to us was fundamentally different. It was still relationship by faith in God, and specifically in his promise of redemption. But our ability to understand that redemption, appreciate it, receive the benefits is only improved.
Okay. Increased. All right. So this idea of increased blessing, you kind of laid out faith produces obedience, which produces blessing yesterday.
Yes.
How does that work for a parent who's trying to shepherd their child towards obedience?
Right.
And especially a child who has not yet placed their faith in Christ alone.
Yeah.
Is that a futile exercise? Why should we do that?
I was really glad we got this question because I really wanted to go into it. Because as I give that illustration, I'm like, boy, there's so much more I could say here, but time is limited. So if I am saying that faith leads to obedience, which leads to blessing, and I have an unregenerate child who doesn't have faith in Christ yet, should I really expect obedience? And what I think we're trying to do there is, again, go back to Hebrews 3, is we're trying to help a child understand that obedience results in blessing, disobedience results in an unpleasant life. And so in the heart of a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, what I'm trying to do is just keep that heart soft so that it's at a place where it can place its faith, where the child can place his or her faith in Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And what can happen very early on in the life of a child is that I can train them to be disobedient. As I train them to be disobedient, I'm training their hearts to become hardened and live a life that's not going to bring a lot of joy. So as a parent with an unregenerate child, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help them keep their hearts soft toward the things of God, toward understanding what obedience is, to understand the blessing that it brings, so that at the appropriate time they can have faith in Christ, practice true obedience, and receive the joy of that. But again, in a young child heart, what you're trying to do is just keep that heart soft toward the Lord.
Yeah, because when you call them to obedience, every time you do that, you have an opportunity to share the gospel.
Exactly.
Help them to see Christ for who he is. So.
And there's a difference between a child consciously rejecting the faith and a child not yet accepting the faith. So we talk about the age of accountability. We won't get into that here, but in the heart of a young child, you're not dealing with a heart that's actively rejected God yet. You're dealing with a heart that's still unregenerate but hasn't placed its faith in Christ yet. And I think there's a difference in how that heart is responding to God.
Okay.
A child that's learning obedience from a parent underneath the parent's authority is still experiencing the blessings of a heart of faith from the parent.
Okay. Well, let me close with this question. We live in a culture that really desires blessing, likes to receive.
Yes.
Selfishness pervades. I see that in my own heart too. How do we pursue this blessing without it coming out of a selfish desire just to get from God?
Yeah. I think it begins by understanding that progression we talked about yesterday. It begins with faith, being obedient to God, and delighting in Him. So, I didn't read Psalm 34. I don't think I did that in second service, at least, where delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm beginning with faith and delighting in the Lord, then I'm going to receive that delight in the Lord and not in the things of the world. So that progression. I can't start with pursuing what I want. I start with loving God, figuring out what it is He wants, and then wanting the same thing, wanting Him ultimately.
Yeah, it's a whole different starting place.
Yeah. So it's like that story we looked at yesterday of Robert McQuilkin and how.
Oh man.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't have said that's what I would delight in, having a wife with Alzheimer's and having to care for her. But because he delighted in the Lord and was obedient to the Lord, that's where he found his delight, the Lord, in the obedience and loving his wife.
It's not that I have to; it's that I get to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
I delight in my time with her. He says.
Yeah. Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
It is. It is. Well, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your day.